And where do you think you're going, my fine woolly friend? It's time for you to get to work. Hello there, and welcome back to Roguecraft. How you been? Me? Oh, I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. Oh, as you can see, we're back at the base, and I think it may be time to do something with the sheep. No, not that. Get your mind out of the gutter. Why do these intros always go so wrong? Can anyone tell me that? Anyway, so today we're going to focus on the sheep farm. These are relatively easy to build farms. I mean, you pop some sheep in some glass enclosures and 16 sheep later, you're halfway there. I usually don't go into a lot of detail in these farms, but I ran into an issue that I haven't seen discussed in other videos, and it was due to the layout I chose for the farm. So, I'm going to do a deep dive on how to build these farms and go over the problem I found and what I did to solve it. When making a sheep farm, using glass is pretty important to the farm working. One, you really need to surround the sheep with full blocks, so when the dispenser triggers the shears, it clips the wool off the sheep. If you used fences or walls or something like that, the sheep can get out of line and not get their wool clipped. But the second and most important reason to use glass is that it's a transparent block that, for reasons of Minecraft, does not kill the grass they are resting on. That's important because you want the grass block the sheep is standing on to regrow grass as fast as possible after they've eaten. The more grass blocks around the dirt block increases the chance of grass spreading back to the original dirt block. Now, once you have all your sheep in their little glass cubes, it's time to dye them. Now you can always dye them beforehand, but it's so much easier to place the sheep first and then dye them second. This way you'll have an easier time having all the sheep in the order you want. I always start with brown because, well, it just doesn't fit into the rainbow color scheme, and then I go with black and the grays, and which leads us into white and pink, and then on through the rest of the rainbow. Now, I did make one mistake in the order I did this, and that is to put the redstone dust behind all the dispensers before dyeing the sheep. Sadly, at least on Java, you can't dye the sheep unless they have their wool, so we'll wait until this little guy eats some grass and move on to the next step. Or we could just move on. To collect all the wool, I'll be using a minecart running below all the sheep pens that will eventually bring all the wool to a bubble vader that drops the items in a water stream that runs across the item sorters that I'll be adding later. For now, I still want to be collecting the wool into a chest on the side until I get all that put into place. In these types of situations, FreeCam is so very useful to see where you are and know where to place the turns for the railway. If it wasn't for FreeCam, I'd actually have to count stuff. And to that, I say never, never again! Okay, so I set up the first part of the item collection, which is just some alternating hoppers into chests sort of daisy chain system, with a cart collecting the wool and bringing it over here on the side as I AFK. But this is when my brain started telling me there's a problem. It's when I started thinking about how the item sorter would work that I realized, well, it wasn't. So, let me explain. So this is the standard item filter as designed by Impulse. It works off the principle that this redstone torch powers this block which locks this hopper. The item filter actually happens up here in this top hopper, where these are just filler blocks, and you put 41 pieces of whatever you want to sort goes in here. Now, this comparator will read the 41 items and go, okay, well that's only a signal strength of 2. But as soon as a 42nd item comes in, it will give it a signal strength of 3. Let's place some items in the hopper. So now this is powered, which powers the repeater, which then powers this pumpkin, which then turns the redstone torch off, which allows items to flow through here and down into here. That's how an item sorter works. Now let's look at how I have my sheep farm set up. Okay, so here's the basic chest and hopper or daisy chain I have on a sheep farm, with the addition of these chests and hoppers to bring everything into a center line. Because remember, I want to have a water stream going down the center of the farm, bringing all the wool into the farm. So, how do I apply the item filter to this? Well, let's try. Let's start by placing the wool. Now, to be clear, it doesn't have to be wool. Wool is just a nice, colorful block that stands out from everything else and is slow to mine with standard tools. That's why you use wool. It stands out, and it's harder to break by accident later on. First, we have to add another hopper so the comparator can see the item filter. You have your dust. We'll go here, here, and here. But then right here, I have to put a repeater. Well, I can't. There's a chest there. All right, let's add in another layer of hopper. So then add more wool. We add our comparator to see the item filter. We add our dust. We come down here. Okay, we're going to put the repeater there. We need a block for it to sit on. And now we have the repeater and the redstone torch. Okay, technically this would work, but we've had to add in 2 more layers of hoppers. And now this redstone torch is locking that one. These are just here to bring the items down. Every hopper you add into an area adds a little bit of lag. It's not a lot, but it does add up. And we really don't want, we're already going to have a lot, we really don't want an extra 2 rows. But that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem, which I didn't even see until I started building this, and sometimes that just happens, you're just building along and suddenly you realize, oh, I did a stupid. So I have the sheep in parallel, right? There's sheep pens on both sides of the farm, parallel to each other. Well, if I'm using this hopper with this filter, how am I going to put a filter over here? I can't. This comparator isn't going to do anything. It can look at that hopper all at once, but that hopper is going to feed items into that chest down to here. Even though I have a different color sheep over here, it's not going to go in. This hopper will only allow me to filter 1 item, which means the layout of my sheep farm won't work. I can't filter the items. Let's head back to the farm and see how I fixed it. So the solution here may seem a little simple and maybe even a little obvious in retrospect, but it's something I've never run into and never seen anyone comment on before. The solution is to stagger the sheep pods. Now the way this will work is the item filter for this wool color will run off in the opposite direction. And because the sheep pods are now staggered, this one will also run on the opposite side and fit into the gap between the sheep pens. Okay, all the sheep have been properly staggered. Now I just need to extend the top of all the daisy chains towards the center with another row of double chests. Then I add in the hoppers and, as you can see from the flow arrows on the top of the hoppers, they alternate from right to left. This is where the water stream will be added in later. I use something called vanilla tweaks to show the direction of all the redstone items like hoppers, droppers, and observers. It's very helpful in situations like this when you need to check your work. And here you can see I added in the first items order. Looking down below, you can see I added in the color of the wool to all the sheep pens. This one does purple wool. I've decided to use the color of the wool it is filtering to help me diagnose problems with the sorting later on. It's not the easiest thing to do to install the item filters in survival, but where there's a will, there's a way. This item filter will be sorting the yellow wool, so I add a bit of yellow to let me know what it's sorting later on. It's best to build the bottom of the sorter first, and I like to use a jack-o'-lantern for the block the redstone torch is applied to. Redstone torches cause lighting updates when they turn on and off. Lighting updates can cause lag, so I always use jack-o'-lanterns to fully light the area around the torches. It may seem like overkill, but when you're on a server, you want to do everything you can to minimize the lag in an area. Not just for you, but for everyone else on the server. So there you go. All the item filters have been installed. Now for the water stream. And with the magic of editing, the water stream and bubble vader have been installed. Down here we have a simple cart unloader on the right and a dropper shooting all the items from the cart up into the bubble column. Once the items arrive at the top, they are bounced off this long row of chests. When using a water stream, it's important to line the items up with the outer edge of the hoppers. Because chests don't take up a full block, they are good for doing this. If I were to use a full block like more glass on this side, the items would get stuck in the middle of the hoppers from time to time. The line of chests will prevent that. I'm using the minecart from the sniffer farm to collect all the wool as well, so I included an unfiltered stack of chests at the end of the stream to collect the seeds from the sniffer farm. This way, I minimize the number of hopper carts around my base. Just another way to minimize the lag in an area by keeping the number of hopper carts as low as I can. And with the redstone finally done and functioning, it's time to slap a new coat of paint on the thing and see if we can make it look a little bit like a place of business. Now, as I've said in past videos, I'm not one of those builders who plans things out. I just try and figure it out in the moment. The main reason for that is I'm very easily distracted. I'm very much the dog that says, "Squirrel!" If I were to use the replay mod for one of my builds, a time-lapse would show me running off for days at a time, come back, place a few blocks, and then run off to do something off camera for 5 minutes, and then back to the build for another 20 blocks, and then me standing and staring at it for a while. The point is, I don't know how to make that work with the way my brain is wired. For me, I just try and figure it out as I go, and then eventually it comes together. And here, I think it turned out pretty good. I love the way the cherry logs and mangrove wood goes together, and it turns out they both go well with sandstone. I think it all plays well together, and the overall build has a sort of manufacturing look to it. I'm really happy with how this build turned out. But you be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. So, I'm going to wrap the video there today. I don't normally do a single topic video, but hopefully there was something of value in there for you. I know I had to do quite a bit of thinking to get everything set up and working, but I think it turned out alright in the end. So for now, I have been Gregor, and this has been Rowcraft. Wherever you are, whatever you find yourself doing, always try and find a way to make it fun. See ya!